Welcome back to day 3 of this $1,000 book promotion ad stacking test. Today has been another unique day in comparison to the previous two. Things have really changed, continued to go in the same direction, which was down. Even though downloads has continued, they've really slowed. So I'll go into the data in a moment, but I want to just start with something very interesting that happened with the author central ranking, which is tied to the Amazon page ranking. So last night and over through the night, it continued to hold around 58. You'll see it here on the left. And then that was how I was holding pretty much the whole day. So that was about 7 a.m. when I took that screenshot. Again, all these screenshots are going to be in a folder, organized by day, with the videos, which will be posted on YouTube, which is where you're probably watching this, along with the book data file and all the charts. I've modified those charts again today, something I probably won't do from this point forward. I think they're pretty dialed in at this point for the rest of this test. I might add some additional, so I added another one today that we'll go over. I'm thinking on one more that I'd probably add tomorrow. We'll have to see how the data plays out. But I started taking screenshots around 7 a.m. I did not start aggregating the data into this spreadsheet until the same period, so that's 8 a.m. So that'd be as consistent as could be across the different days. But I started at 58, and that's where the rank in the paid, again, it says it's in the paid Kindle store, but it's actually in the free Kindle store. I stayed there the whole day until about 4 or 5. I don't know the exact time that this happened because I wasn't tracking the sales rank every hour like the screenshots that I was getting the data on downloads. But around 5:30, I decided to check in, and it was at 51. And there are some other screenshots throughout the afternoon. Maybe it's in one of those, and I just don't remember, but it did jump back up for a while. And it was happening at the same time that downloads were slowing. So again, look at this time at 5:30. It's going to be important when we go look at the charts. But throughout the day, the rate continued to fall, the rate of downloads, the rate of change. So suddenly, there was this bump up 7 positions that I don't think has anything to do with my activity. I think it has more to do with the activity of the other books on the list. And that held for a few hours. I know at about 7:30, because I have another screenshot, it was still at 51. And then around 10:30, when I checked back in here on the right, you can see it had fallen to 75. And I expected it will probably hold through 75 through the night. And then tomorrow, maybe it'll drop off completely off the top 100. It's still number 1 in... And this also was one of those things that changed throughout the day. At one point it was 8. At one point it was 9 of the subcategories. It's continued to hold pretty well in the overall sci-fi genre free store at about 4, and I think it dropped to 8 at the same time that it dropped here to 75. But it was strange to see an uptick late in the day as the other metrics continued to decline. Don't really know how to explain that other than to say it probably has more to do with the other books on the list than mine. All right, so you can see I've continued to keep the same structure of the data as yesterday with one addition. So I've now added the raw downloads per hour. And this is important because as I thought about that bump, that 10-hour aggregated bump, something hit me. That the scale of that is really being not misleading. It's not that it's misleading, but it's being muted by the fact that the rate of change is constantly calculated on the rolling aggregate. So I did clarify some of these metric titles in the visuals to emphasize that these are totals. So this is a total, this is an aggregate total. It's not as though in 1 hour there were 666 and then in the next hour a unique 1176. This 1176 contains that 666. So to clarify that, I just added that to the title. But if we scroll down, you'll see the days continue. We've got data all the way through 10 p.m., 10:30-ish snapshot. Same thing happened today where I tried to be really consistent about taking that snapshot at the same time, mid-hour, all day. But again, middle of the day with meetings and things going on, I fell behind. So there's a little bit of that same inconsistency in the intervals. I tried to make up for it and spread it out and mute it throughout the rest of the day. But know that as you look at these numbers. But let's look at one other new data piece that I started adding that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but because this is available in the orders, and something else happened that I should mention, that if you're going through the screenshots and you think they're kind of schizophrenic, some are from my desktop. So these are from my desktop, and you'll be able to see as I pull it up, these landscape layout ones are from my desktop. The others are from my phone, but something that happened is even if we pull this up, you'll be able to see this. So this was the first snapshot that I took at 8:30. Okay, look at the layout of this page. Now, in the evening, look at the last snapshot. It's different. That's because middle of the day, Amazon rolled out an update to the KDP reports. This is a beta report. You can see it right there in the corner. It says, hey, this is a beta. And Amazon is notorious for doing this. In the few months that I've had interactions, I've only been on the KDP platform since August. I was testing it in July, but really in August was when the first book that I had uploaded. And that's when I really started to become familiar with it. Now, I interact with lots of other software platforms just in my day job, and I've none of them update as frequently as Amazon. KDP is just constantly updating. And it happened middle of the day. And one of the byproducts of this is the checkboxes are gone. So it's no longer easy to filter out those 6. And you can see if I go here on the desktop, I can still do it quite easy. I can say I don't want to look at any of the paid, and you'll see it drops by 6. And that's because same thing from yesterday, which there have been no new sales here in KDP, nor have there been any new sales in Ingram. But Ingram's on a delay. One of the things I have noticed, and I started to talk about this yesterday, but one of the things I have noticed about Ingram in particular is that even as I've purchased books off of Amazon, because it's often easier to fulfill an order for someone that I know, to just buy it off Amazon because I get it faster and more consistently than buying it through Ingram. I think the cost difference is something like $1 more. So it's not as though, because Ingram's shipping is just so insanely expensive. And as a result, I often will fulfill individual orders that people come to me for just by doing it on Amazon. And what I have noticed in the few months that I've been doing this is that there's a big delay. And in fact, it seems like they aggregate orders and then put them through in batches. So it would be day after day where there's nothing, and then suddenly it'll jump 10 or 20. 20 is the biggest, I think, or 22 is the biggest that it's jumped at once. And this issue seems to be more prevalent with the hardcover than it is with the paperback. But no new sales here, no new sales here. But the byproduct consequence of them updating their layout in mobile is that, great, I can do a line chart, but I can't easily filter. So throughout the day, I had to start in the snapshots. You'll see this is the 1030, 6,011. Over here, I just deduct those 6, and that's going on throughout most of the day when that change happened. Now this introduces the issue, there could be some human error. Whenever you're doing manual data entry, human error is almost guaranteed, so compare against the spreadsheet or the snapshots, that's why I included them here. But you'll see they started to decline throughout the day. However, we did pass just by the skin of our teeth. In fact, this one, when I was doing it at 9:30ish, I was like, oh, should I just wait 10 more minutes and then it will pass 6,000? But we did end up breaking the 6,000 mark. But as I was starting to say, here with this data, yesterday I talked about the international, and I thought, I'm going to start aggregating this. And what I don't have, and unfortunately I think the data's gone, and there may be ways, someone else commented that I've been talking to online about this, that if you do the actual reports from the other original KDP dashboard and the royalty dashboard, that some of this data is in there, I think it's still aggregated by time. So I still think the only way to get this data over time is to aggregate it yourself, which is really time-consuming and difficult. But the United States by itself, I did a little Pareto analysis. This is like 95%. The top 2 or 3, which would be the 80%, are actually like 95, 96%. So it's not quite the Pareto principle going on, but still, very few are dominating the overall pattern. And so I started to aggregate this data into another sheet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe some Pareto analysis once this is totally done. Maybe some geo mapping. We'll see. But I did start to collect it, and I just have to manually update this by comparing it to this list. What I've noticed is For a while, it was all the US that kept updating. Then the US really paused. There wasn't a lot of activity. And then suddenly the UK started to boom. Probably has something to do with time zones. Okay. Now, I did say the good news is we passed the 6,000 mark. Just barely. So you can see, again, those diminishing returns. You can also see this bump. Again, that's 10 hours right there. If you look down here, it's 10 p.m. on December 8th. It's 8 a.m. on December 9th. So you see that same kind of uptick bump that you saw here. And these don't look that dramatic in this chart. And they look even less dramatic in this chart, the rate of downloads. So again, this is an aggregation. This is the total downloads. It's one of the things I changed to make it clear. This is the aggregated total downloads over time, creeping up and up and up. So these bumps don't look huge here. They look big here. In fact, you could be misled if you did not pay close attention to the 6-point font titles. And this is why I'm sure a statistician watching this video is just shaking his fist at the sky, cursing my name right now. Because this is why you don't want to do this kind of thing. The trade-off here was, do I have multiple charts, or do I add a huge number and average smooth it? That might be one way to deal with this, is just take those 12.72 rate. So if we go back to the raw data and look at how much that is, which you're going to be shocked at the moment when I show you this other chart, could just divide it by 10 and just level it out. That might be a more accurate way to visualize this. Maybe at the end we'll do that. But like I said, the trade-off here is I'm not going to stay up all night aggregating manual data. And so some arrows that just point out and say this is 10 hours aggregated. Or a visual line that even cut these out and just divide it into charts, separate sections of the chart, might be more appropriate. I'm not going down that path. I know what's going on. I know that this bump is not a sudden uptick at 8 a.m. in the morning, which is what you might wrongly assume. You see it here. You see it here. It's part of this diminishing decline. I bet you we see it tomorrow right here, and it'll be just a little itty-bitty bump. But these don't stand out as big changes because, again, the rate of change is taking into consideration the entirety of the total of the running total. It's how many total downloads are there now over the amount of downloads there were an hour ago, divided by the number there were an hour ago. And so that denominator is always getting larger and larger with the downloads, which is why these bumps don't look so big. But when you plot it, and this is why I added this column right here, I added it for two reasons. One, because last night as I was trying to do the math in my head, that's never a good thing. It's better to have the hard numbers. I mean, we knew that the general trend was it was trending down. The pattern was it was trending down. Till, again, this overnight bump. And look at how big that bump is compared to this and this. And then it picks up a little bit in the mid-morning, and then it starts to decline again. And then we have this big bump that you'll see again overnight. And so I visualized this for two reasons. I wanted to actually see at what rate we were getting hour by hour throughout this third day, but also to see the effect of those bumps. And so here's that visual. So here's that little bump from right here, and this one, it's right there. So this is actually the highest number of downloads as a single category. So if you looked at this chart, you could be misled to believe that 8 a.m. is the time of day, that you're just going to get the most downloads, right? 8 a.m. there, 8 a.m. there, 8 a.m. there. But the context is, this is 10 hours worth of downloads. So I may fix it, I may not, but I know what's going on here. And the trend is that it's just declining down and down throughout the day to where it's been 12, 10 an hour. So we went from where there were, about 1 per hour in this range on average, a little bit less, 1 per minute on average in this range, to where we now have, oh, look, this is not showing. I'll have to update the chart. The chart itself is not showing, and in both cases here, has not been, I forgot to reference the additional columns in the data, or rows in the data, which I'll fix for tomorrow. But the trend is the same. It's about 10. So we're talking now 1 every 5 to 6 minutes. Now, I had heard online, as part of the research that I did leading into this, I had heard that it's best to use the 5 free days that Kindle gives you, Kindle Unlimited. So you have to be enrolled in Kindle Unlimited to be doing this kind of free day promotion. Unless your book is perma-free, and that's a whole different strategy. What you can do, you just put it up somewhere else, Kobo, Google Books, you get it priced at $0 there, and then you tell Amazon a price match and it'll do it. So you could do that and have it perma-free, which is what a lot of people do, and still run these book promotions. But if you're enrolled in Kindle Unlimited like Subsumption is, then you have the choice between 5 free days in a 90-day window or a Kindle Countdown deal, which I think is 7 days, where you can discount it and there's a timer and it shows people that it's discounted. And there are different book promotion sites for these different offerings. A lot of them, like Free Booksy and some of the others, they had either sister companies or other advertising options for discounted books rather than free books. So you could also do this with a Kindle Countdown. Obviously, the return on investment for that has a better chance of being positive. But I wanted to test the free book promotion with the free Kindle days. And I had heard from a few people online, and specifically other author tubers, that it's best to do it in 2 pieces. So you do one promotion that's 2 days and one promotion that's 3 days. Now, if I did that with these same book promotion ad stacking individual companies, that would double the cost of this. So it would have been a $2,000 experiment. And I'm thinking that in March I might actually do that. Or that I might do let me back up, that I might do the 2-day and 3-day in the next 90-day window that I have, which starts January 10th or something. So I might in late January do a 2-day promotion, and when I talked about doing that with the BookBub, that's probably what I'll do, is just do it for 2 days. Because if you look, after 2 days, most of what has happened is over, right? To here. Yeah, we got 217, but if we just go to these days and we look, we've only had 347 out of the 6,000. So, would it have been worth it to just cut it off at the second day? Maybe. So I think what I'll do with the BookBub is just do 2 days. And then I think it'll probably be in early March, because I want to make sure the audiobooks are out, and Audible is so backed up right now in their approval time. My audiobooks are still in production, but the producer is warning me, know that when I hand these to you in early January, you're facing at least 30 days. Could be longer for Audible to do their quality control check. And he has seen stuff go through it very quickly. He has seen stuff that's just gotten bogged down and taken a long time. So knowing that, and knowing that I have that 90-day window, probably in early March what I'll do is another mega ad stack where I put together all of those from this list, plus BookBub, plus a couple others that I found. There were a few others that claim to be on the level of BookBub. And do a mega ad stack with a 3-day promotion and see if I can hit number 1 in the free bookstore. But now my budget has gone up. I'm guessing that BookBub is going to be somewhere between $600 to $1,000 based on the research that I've done. And if I then combine that and all of these other book promotion sites that I use this time, that is probably a $2,000 promotion. So the total for dividing up my 5 days into 2 different promotional runs, which is the best practice that I saw over and over and over again, it's now gone from 1,000 to maybe 3,000. I'm controlling some of that with my decisions, but it could go up significantly. Now, will the results go up significantly? Because one of the things I talked about yesterday is how much does being number 1 in the subcategory stores and being in the top, I got to the 21 position, so I was on the first page of the free Kindle store. How much do those positions affect continual download? And I think the answer became clear here right around 8 p.m. last night. That it's probably 1 book every 2 to 5 minutes. Which is not anything to blink at. That's still quite a bit of downloads compared to other options that are out there, putting your book up on free promotion sites like Prolific Works or Story Origin or BookFunnel, doing group giveaways, doing a Goodreads giveaway. Those things are also quite expensive when you start to about per download. Right now, the cost per download is $1,000 divided by 6,000 downloads. And I've seen other things. I have seen some book sales, print book sales, some digital book sales, very small numbers. I have seen some additions to my mailing list. I have seen people adding me on Goodreads and adding the book to their shelves. There have been other marketing benefits. I've gotten into international markets. There have been other benefits beyond the cost per download. But $1,000 for 6,000 downloads is pretty inexpensive compared to the other approaches that I've researched. And that's why I was confident, or I should say hopefully confident, that I was going to hit 5,000, which we did, and then I got another 1,000 out of it. Now, if this trend continues like this, of about 10 per hour, I think it's going to slow down and hover around 10 per hour. For the next 2 days, 500 more. I might squeeze 500 more out. Or what is more likely to happen looking at these trends is it'll go, in half tomorrow and half the day after. Unless all of this is being driven by the positioning in the subcategory stores. And I don't know if the amount of downloads that is being received is sufficient to keep me in those positions. So far today, throughout all of these downloads, in this range of 16, 24, 12, 28, 13, that has been enough. If it is really updating every hour, which it does seem like that is what's going on. I have started to see movements shifting around in an hour, so I think they're being honest about that. I know I had raised some doubts about that in one of the previous days. It does look like they really are refreshing that every hour. Well, then one download every 2 to 5 minutes seems to be enough to keep you in the number one position in a lot of subcategories. I only dropped out of the number one position in 2 of them during the day, out of 10. And I only dropped to the second spot. So that's encouraging that maybe we really have hit that steady state. And throughout tomorrow and Friday, we'll get another 500. If that happens, I will have exceeded my goal, my first goal of 5,000 downloads by 1,500. It's a pretty good chunk over my goal. However, I wanted to get to the number one spot, only got to the 21st spot, and so that goal was not reached. And now I have to strategize. By the way, one other thing that I'm suspecting is this was on a Monday, this was on a Tuesday, and this has been on Wednesday. How much does the day of the week affect the competitive nature of the rankings? I kind of suspect from the fact that I have stayed, and at one point even started to climb again in the overall free Kindle store, with diminishing downloads, I think maybe the competition isn't as intense midweek, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the week. And this is one of the reasons that I did do a 5-day all at once, is I wanted to see the effects of each day across the 5-day week. If you're familiar with the publishing industry, Tuesday is the default release day. Not everybody does it, but it's tradition. So a lot of books will release on a Tuesday. And I think a lot of other people, when they think about promotions, my mind went straight to a Monday. And so maybe there's less competition on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Maybe there's less competition over the weekend. I have heard, and I did avoid the weekend because a lot of other people, I posted this on a bunch of Facebook groups that I'm part of with other indie authors, and I asked, what are your worst sales days? And almost unanimously people said Saturday and Sunday. And I have seen what little data I have from the Amazon ads from the AMS system. It does seem like all the sales that have come through have been during the weekdays. They have not been on the weekends. So I probably will, moving forward after this experiment, do a 2-day. That's probably a Wednesday, Thursday for the BookBub stuff. And that'll be in late January. And then in early-ish March, pending the release of the audiobooks that they're available, then I think I'll do a 3-day that will probably, again, be like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and see if the same kinds of approaches, with even a little bit more gas behind the fire, can reach the goal faster and stay there longer. And so we'll just have to see. We've got 2 more days ahead of us. Thanks for sticking around. 2 more videos coming up. See you on the next one.